Today, we're talking Cowboy wheel guns, the most brutal wrist breakers that built reputations and buried enemies. Some were oversized artillery pieces, others compact pocket killers with firepower packed into tiny frames. But all of them had one thing in common: they weren't made for amateurs. So, which 10 Old West revolvers are the most brutal? Let's load up and find out. Number 10. Colt 1877 Thunderer. When Colt's first double action arrived, it immediately divided opinion. On paper, it looked perfect for the pocket. A bird's head grip, 6 shots of 41 Colt, and a trigger that fired as quickly as you could squeeze. Now, unfortunately, that speed came from a clockwork complex interior made of slender parts. Owners loved the idea of double-action fire, but cursed the repairs. Even now, gunsmiths joke that the 1877 pays for new boats, because every spring, the inside eventually snaps. Yet, more than 166,000 left Hartford, so folks clearly wanted the concept. Famous figures held the allure. John Wesley Hardin preferred the 41 over heavier Colts, and Billy the Kid supposedly tucked the .38 Sister Lightning in his waistband. Elegant nickel plating, fire-blued screws, and optional ivory grips made the little revolver handsome, and short storekeeper barrels vanished beneath dusters. Period price ran $15 to $20, steep for a cowhand, but fair for a gentleman who valued concealment. On the trail, the 41 cartridge offered respectable punch inside 20 paces. Yet beyond that, it lost steam quickly. Add fragile internals, a heavy double-action pull, and black powder fouling, and the drawbacks clearly outweighed the glamour. Even so, when a Thunderer worked, it delivered 6 rapid shots faster than any Peacemaker. Surviving examples in fine shape bring $4,000 to $7,000 today. But why is it brutal? Well, because it embodied the frontier's appetite for more fire in less time, no matter the mechanical cost. Number 9. Smith & Wesson No. 3 American. In 1870, Smith & Wesson stunned the U.S. Army with a revolver that opened like a shotgun, kicked out empty cases, and begged for a fresh half-dozen metallic cartridges. That top-break system made the No. 3 American the first standard cartridge handgun in federal service, beating cap-and-ball Colts by miles in reload speed. It was chambered in .44 Smith & Wesson American and hit as hard as any service pistol of the day while shaving precious seconds during a firefight. Lawmen loved it, outlaws wanted it, and foreign governments ordered tons of it. Russia alone bought 41,000 in 1871. Wyatt Earp holstered a variant, Jesse James carried another, and Grand Duke Alexei of Russia posed with one after a buffalo hunt. The appeal was speed, modern cartridges, and factory nickel that laughed at sweat. Granted, it had issues. Its proprietary .44 round never achieved the popularity of .44 Russian or .45 Colt, so ammo supply became dicey out on the frontier. The lockup, though strong, could loosen under constant heavy loads. The latch also collected grit faster than a Peacemaker. Military brass also realized the frame wouldn't accept long .45 cartridges, forcing a logistical nightmare during field trials. Surplus units were soon pushed aside by the Colt SAA. Original production cost hovered near $18. Cased presentation pieces now command well past $10,000, while shooter-grade examples float between $2,000 and $3,000. Even with its quirks, the No. 3 American earns brutal status for the simple reason that it rewrote the rulebook on revolver reloading speed at a time when a few seconds meant life or death. Still riding, gunslingers? Hit that subscribe button. It's faster than a quick draw, louder than a 6-shooter. No fluff, just steel, history, and firepower. Saddle up with the crew that respects recoil and rides with grit. Number 8. Colt 1860 Army. When war broke out in 1861, Colt's newest .44 hit the field in numbers no revolver had seen before. The 1860 Army shared the Navy's slim frame, but engineered shaved metal inside and used a rebated cylinder to squeeze in a man-stopping cartridge. Soldiers loved the lighter weight, 2 pounds 11 ounces compared with earlier Dragoons. Yet the pistol still hurled a .454 ball at nearly 900 feet per second. More than 129,000 went straight to Union units, and countless Confederates carried captured examples. The creeping lever rammer made loading smoother, and the graceful lines set a benchmark for revolver aesthetics. On the downside, that open-top frame flexed under heavy use, and barrels sometimes loosened after prolonged firing. Rapid cylinder swaps require pulling the wedge and removing the barrel, hardly ideal under fire. Civil War contract price started at $20, later dropping to $14.50. But even that undercutting couldn't beat Remington's cheaper solid frame alternative. After Appomattox, the 1860s soldiered on in the Southwest until metallic conversions or surplus carbines replaced it. Converting to .44 Colt extended service life, yet many kitchen table jobs lacked extractors, turning reloads into a chore. Today, an honest battlefield veteran hovers around $7 or $8,000, but reproductions from Pieta or Uberti begin under $400, giving modern shooters a taste of percussion thunder. Number 7. Remington New Model Army 1858. Remington's answer to Colt arrived with a top strap that transformed reliability. Starting in 1858, the Ilion factory turned out more than 230,000 of these .44 percussion revolvers, many under Union contract when Colt's factory fire halted peacemaker production. The solid frame resisted stretching, cylinders slipped out for cleaning without removing the barrel, and safety slots between nipples let cavalrymen safely ride with all 6 chambers loaded. That's a huge peace of mind on a galloping horse. At $15 government cost, commanders considered it a bargain. Rugged construction showed in the field as well. Records showed fewer frame failures than comparable Colts. Even Buffalo Bill kept one on his belt until 1906, a 13-plus year endorsement if ever there was one. It wasn't perfect. The fixed barrel made thorough cleaning harder, and the sharp edges of the loading lever pinched fingers after a long day's firing. Soldiers also complained that the sights weren't up to snuff, and the trigger pull could be gritty straight from the crate. Still, when Remington introduced factory metallic conversions in .46 rimfire by 1867, owners suddenly held a brutal wheel gun, the first large-bore cartridge revolver available to civilians. Now, price-wise, modern reproductions run $360 to $550, while pristine wartime originals can fetch 5 figures easily. Number 6. Colt 1902 Philippine. Constabulary leftover parts rarely become legends, yet the 1902 Philippine model carved out notoriety by brute necessity. As the US wrestled for control of the islands at the dawn of the 20th century, reports of drug-fueled Moro fighters shrugging off .38 rounds sent procurement officers scrambling. Colt dug up 1878 double-action frames, beefed up the mainspring, stretched the trigger for leverage, and shipped 4,600 revolvers chambered in .45 Colt. The enormous trigger guard, often mistaken for winter glove clearance, was there solely to house that extended trigger. Pull weight soared past 20 pounds, but the hard primers finally ignited every time. Its appeal wasn't from beauty, that's for sure, but from certainty. It would fire in jungle humidity when nothing else would. Yet the list of cons reads very long. Coarse sights, long reach, heavy recoil, and a weight that rivaled some carbines. Even worse, the design still used black powder pressures, so Frankfurt Arsenal loaded special reduced rounds, leaving troops stranded once stocks dwindled. Original Army cost was about $13, discounted because Colt reused old inventory. Today, Marshall market examples hover around $2,000, and pristine cased specimens can double that. Owning one is like adopting a bulldog. It's ugly, stubborn, and occasionally bad-tempered, but utterly fearless when pressed. Number 5. Remington 1875. With Colt raking in the cavalry contracts, Remington needed a cartridge revolver that could go toe-to-toe. So, the 1875 kept the new model Army's solid frame and added a webbed underbarrel housing that stiffened the ejector rod. First cataloged in .44 Remington, soon in .44-40 and .45 Colt, the model 1876 matched the Colt Peacemaker's barrel length at 7.5 inches, and sold for $18 blue, $19 in nickel. Remington crowed about a 10,000 gun Egyptian order, yet payment collapsed, and most of that batch stayed stateside. Mexican and Indian police contracts followed, but total production stalled at around 30,000, a fraction of Colt's output. But those who bought one discovered a tank. The integral grip frame used 6 fewer screws than the Peacemaker, and the hefty nose kept muzzle flip tame. Sharing .44-40 ammo with a Winchester was priceless on the frontier, a fact outlaw Frank James cited when surrendering. 1 cartridge, 2 guns, no confusion. Drawbacks lay in heft and parts scarcity. Frontier smiths familiar with Colts sometimes balked at Remington internals. Post-1888 fire sale pricing under Hartley and Graham dropped to $12.50 nickel, undercutting Colt but signaling the end. Today, early engraved pieces bring 5 figures, while plain survivors start around $3,000. Uberti and Cimarron clones cover the market from $700 up. Number 4. Colt Frontier 6-shooter in 4440. Colt's smartest move of the 1870s wasn't a new gun at all, it was a new chambering. By offering the single-action army in Winchester's 4440, the company solved every cowhand's logistical nightmare. One cartridge rode in belt loops, rifle magazine, and revolver cylinder alike. Barrels that were roll-marked Colt Frontier 6-shooter signaled that compatibility, and sales boomed, especially among trail drivers who hated sorting ammo under starlight. Ballistics were nothing to scoff at. A 200-grain slug at around 1100 FPS from a rifle and roughly 900 from a revolver. Plenty for deer-sized game or two-legged threats. The revolver itself remained the same reliable peacemaker, solid frame, easy maintenance, crisp single-action trigger, but it wasn't all advantages. The bottleneck case could split if reloaders pushed charges, and black powder residue built up faster than in straight-walled rounds, binding cylinders during long shoots. Also, Frontier veterans noted the 4440 lacked the bone-crushing authority of the 45 Colt on feral cattle. Price matched the standard SAA, about $17, yet many viewed that as money saved because they no longer needed different ammunition types. Today, antique Frontiers range from $2,000 to $8,000, depending on condition. Replicas from Pieta and USFA run $500 to $1,200. Number 3. Whitneyville Dragoon. Sometimes brute force is transitional. The Whitneyville Hartford Dragoon, built only in late 1847, bridged the gap between the overpriced Walker and the refined first model Dragoon. Using leftover Walker parts, Colt shortened the cylinder, trimmed the barrel to 7.5 inches, and added the first lever latch to tame recoil-induced drop. Only 240 were made, and each remained a 4-pound sledgehammer, firing up to 50 grains of powder. Officers who ordered them wanted Walker to punch in a package one could carry on a belt. Sort of. Reality proved otherwise. Even trimmed, the pistol tugged on holsters like an anchor, and recoil was still brutal. Still, the appeal soared because it symbolized progress. The most powerful repeating handgun a soldier could reasonably haul without a saddle holster. Unit cost matched Walker contracts, around $25. That's astronomical for the era. Surviving originals number perhaps 24, and auction north of $500,000. Cimarron's replica offers the experience for around $600. Number 2. Colt Dragoon. When Colt toned the Walker down, the Dragoon stepped in as frontier artillery. 3 successive models refined grip shape, lever latch, and cylinder engravings, yet all shared core traits: 44 caliber, 7.5-inch barrel, and enough steel to crack a wagon wheel. Mounted troops holstered them on saddle, then dismounted with more power than most carbines under 50 yards. 50-grain charges launched 140-grain balls near 1,050 FPS, plenty to drop a horse or its rider. Civilians embraced Dragoons during the gold rush, despite price tags hovering near $40 shipped to California. The cons were obvious: 4+ rounds, slow reloads, and a propensity to batter wrists. History still records stagecoach guards who carried 2, firing one then the other, rather than reloading. Originals today start around $15,000. Now, Italian replicas give black powder fans the same thunder for roughly $500. So why is it on the list? Well, because it was the baddest and heaviest revolver frontiermen willingly chose once lighter models emerged. Number 1. Colt Walker. In at number 1 is the wheelgun that redefined handgun audacity. Captain Sam Walker demanded a revolver that could put a Comanche warrior down in one shot. Samuel Colt obliged, with a 9-inch barreled Leviathan holding 60 grains of powder per chamber. That's double any competitor. It enabled the Walker to punch through both horse and rider, then bury an adobe. Granted, that power came with a price. 4.5 pounds unloaded, violent recoil, and metallurgy pushed past its limits. Exploding cylinders and dropping loading levers also plagued the 1,100 guns produced. Survivors loaded reduced charges or wedged rawhide under the lever to keep fighting. Each unit cost about $37, but most of the Texas-mounted rifles received them at government expense. Civilians who managed to buy one often carried it in pommel holsters. Wearing a Walker on a belt just invited back pain. Despite all its faults, no sidearm inspired more awe. Rip Ford claimed its blow equaled a musket at 100 yards, and Mexican opponents learned to fear its thunder. Fewer than 200 intact originals exist. One pristine Marshall example brought $1.84 million, the highest price ever paid for a single firearm. Reproductions sell for roughly $530 and still brutally rattle wrists to this day. Every revolver since the Colt Walker has been a compromise between its overwhelming power and its unforgiving nature, which is why the Walker holds the uncontested #1 spot on this list. And that about wraps up our list here. Got a favorite we didn't mention? Make sure to drop it in the comments down below. Hit like, share this with your fellow lead slingers, and subscribe for more no-nonsense gun history. Thanks for watching.